Hello students, hope you're all doing good. This video is powered by Synthesis Tutorials. So in today's session, we'll be starting a new chapter, that is circles, that happens to be chapter number 17 of your textbook. So the basic thing about circle which are there, children, that we'll be discussing first, and then we'll be moving to the theorems that are given into your textbook. So we'll be moving to the first thing, children. The first thing is the basic structure, that is called circle. So this is our circle. Now if you just look into the basic things, then if this is my center, this is called my radius. The double times of radius is called diameter, and then the chord, we have a chord. And then what is a chord? It's a line segment that is joining any two points on the circumference of the circle. Before that, you must be knowing what is circumference. Circumference is this particular outer lining of the circle. The perimeter that you call of the circle is called the circumference. Okay, so this is going to be called circumference. Now if you move to the next thing, that is a chord. So a chord is a line segment which is joining any two points that are there on the circle. So suppose this is my point on the circle, this is my point on the circle, then these 2 points, whenever they are being joined, so this particular line segment AB is called the chord of a circle. You know this already. And now if ever you are being asked that which is the longest chord of a circle, then your answer is going to be diameter, because diameter is also a line which is joining any two random points on the circle, but it is passing through a center. So it is a special type of chord. Okay, so this is what you know. Now the next thing that is there in your textbook is, you know that diameter is 2 times of radius. And then we have external and internal points, children. So that is also what you know. If I just erase this interior parts, because we are done with this already. So you know, when we talk about interior of a circle and exterior of a circle, what does that mean? Whichever is point inside this particular circles, this particular circle is called interior of this particular part is called interior, and whatever is outside is called exterior. So whenever we have point which is inside this circle, so that is called an interior point, and whenever we have a point that is outside the circle, that is called exterior point. So the condition is that they should be in the same plane. Of course, children, when you talk about the plane, what is plane? It is the plane in which that particular circle that we are talking about is lying. So whenever we are talking about external and internal point, they should be on the same plane as of the circle. And it is understood, children, since that we are talking about a circle which happens to be a 2D figure, so they have to be in a same plane. Okay, when we talk about the interior, so interior point is a point that is lying on the same plane as that of a circle, and its distance should be less than the radius. Suppose if you see here, what is my radius here, children? This is my center and this is my radius. Okay, so if this is my radius, then if you see, the distance of the center from the internal point is always less than the radius. So that is called the interior point. It is also called internal point. Okay, so the basic definition is that, children, that whichever point is lying inside the circle is called internal point or interior point, and whichever is lying outside, that is called exterior point. Okay, and then what is it, children, that we call, when do we call that a point is lying on the circumference of the circle? So whenever we have a point over here, so this is my circumference. So this is what this is, we say when we say that a point is lying on the circumference of a circle. Okay, so this is a thing. Now if you move to the next thing, children, that is there in your textbook, then that is called what? That is called concentric circles. So what is concentric circle, children? Concentric circles, for concentric circle, the basic condition which is there is we should have more than one circle. So concentric circle means the circles which are having same center but they will be having different radii. Means what? Suppose this is my center, with this center I am drawing a circle. Then with this particular center I am drawing another circle, but then my radius is now different. So these two circles are called concentric circles. Suppose I am drawing another big circle. Okay, so this circle is also called concentric circle. So this is the meaning of concentric circle, children, wherein taking same center, you are drawing circles one after the other with different radius. So suppose this is my R1, this is my R2, and this is my R3. So the only condition is there that you should have different radii and then your center has to be same. So here you can be marking this as O. Okay, so this is our concentric circle. Then we'll be talking about what? Then we'll be talking about equal circles. So as the name suggests, children, what are equal circles? So I'll be writing here equal circles. Okay, so equal circles are the circle if they are having equal radii. So here the condition is that, children, that the centers will be different and the radius will be same. Suppose if the radius of this is equal to r, the radius of this is also equal to r, which it does not look like, children. Of course this circle looks pretty big. So suppose I am having this. So if suppose radius here is 2 centimeter and here also radius is 2 centimeter, then these two circles are called what? These two circles are called equal circles. So equal circles are also called what, children? These are also called congruent circles. Now if you remember, children, you have already studied what are congruent triangles. So congruent triangles, in a simple words, are the triangles which can actually superimpose on each other. So similarly here, my congruent circles are the circle which, if kept one above the another, they will be able to cover each other completely. So that is what is called equal circle. So it is understood, children, if the center is going to be center is of course different, you are not taking same center, but if the radius is same, then everything, perimeter, diameter, area, everything is going to be same. So these are called equal circles. Okay, now we'll be moving to the next thing, that is called circumscribed circle, children. Okay, this is circum, C-I-R-C-U-M, and then scribed, circumscribed circle. Okay, so if you remember, children, in your previous standard, in your 8th standard, you have been drawing a circle, that is circumscribing a triangle or a square. Even if you don't, then you must have heard about this. So when we say circumscribed, means what? I'll be having an external circle like this, and then I'll be putting any quadrilateral or a triangle, any polygon inside this. So what is happening? Basically, suppose I have a figure like this. So any circle which is passing through all the vertex of this particular polygon is called a circumscribed circle. So here you need to have a what? You know, the smallest polygon is triangle. So suppose I am having a triangle, then any circle which is passing through all the 3 vertices of this particular polygon is called a circumscribed circle. The center of this particular circle is called circumcenter, which you must have studied in, if you remember, there was a sum and distance formula wherein we had studied about the circumcenter. So what is circumcenter, children? Circumcenter will be the radius of this particular center. Which circle? Sorry, children, center of this particular circle. And which circle? The circle which is passing through all the 3 vertices of the polygon which it is covering. Okay, and suppose I am having 5-sided figure, children. So for 5-sided, so they are saying it's for polygon, children. So it's not necessary that it should be a quadrilateral or a triangle. The only condition is it should be a polygon. So suppose I am drawing a figure like this. Now how will be circumcenter for this? Circumcenter for this should go like this. It should touch each and every vertex of this particular polygon. Okay, so this is called circumcircle, or what we say that this particular circle is circumscribed. Okay, and one more thing, children. Suppose this is the circle and suppose here I am drawing a square or a rectangle. Then here this circle is called circumscribed. Okay, so whichever is outside, children, that is called circumscribed, and we have a polynomial or a square here. So this is called inscribed. Why? Because this is inscribed inside. So whichever is inside, that is called inscribed, and whichever is covering, that is called circumscribed. Okay, so we will be now moving to the next part, that is called inscribed circle, or it is also called incircle. So as the name suggests, children, what is inscribed circle? Okay, so this is inscribed circle. It means I am having a polygon outside and inside that I am drawing a circle. So this particular circle is called inscribed circle, and the center of this circle is called incenter. Okay, so here this is called incenter. Okay, and this circle which is there, that is called inscribed. Why? Because this is inside, and this particular polygon which is there, this is called circumscribed. So by now you must have understood, children, that circumscribed can be a polygon on a circle, or a circle means whichever is outside, that is called circumscribed, and whichever is inside, that is called inscribed. Okay, so this is the thing. One more example if I want to give you, it can be like this, children. See, suppose I have a square like this, and then inside that I am drawing a circle. So this is called incircle, this is called incenter, and this is called circumscribed square. Okay, and suppose I am drawing a pentagon like this. So there are various examples that can be given, children, and suppose I have a circle that is running through all the sides. So here also this is called incenter, this is called incircle, and this pentagon is called circumscribed pentagon. Okay, so this is the thing. Next we will be moving to the next thing which is there in your textbook, children. So that is called an arc, segment, and a sector. Okay, so what is an arc? See, suppose this is a circle which I am talking about. Okay, so in this circle, a part of the circumference is called an arc. So suppose here I am taking from here to here, this point to this point. So any point on this particular circle, okay, any part of this, not point, children, any part of this. What is part, children? Suppose I am taking this part, or I am taking above part. So this particular point is called its arc. And how it is denoted, children? It is denoted as arc AB. Okay, and then here also we are having two things, children. There are two types of arc, so which is called major arc and minor arc. So basically whenever we have to denote an arc, usually what we do, children, we take one more point here. So this is called APB. So we write like this, arc APB. Alright, so and suppose I have a arc here as well, a point here as well, that is Q. So what do you see, children? If you are drawing an imaginary line here, suppose it's not there actually, this line is not a part of the arc, children. This you need to remember. Okay, so this is called arc APB, and if you see, if I want to rotate like this, that is also a part of circle, children. So we have a arc AQB as well. So you will always get what? You will always get that one of the arc is small in size and one of the arc is bigger in size. So the smaller arc which is there, that is arc APB, this is called minor arc. As the word suggests, this is small. And arc AQB is called major arc. Okay, so in any circle we have a minor arc and we have a major arc, and then if both the arcs are equal, then each part of them is called semicircle, because for each of them to be equal, children, what can be my figure like? My figure has to be like this. See, suppose from here to here, if I take this is one arc and this is one arc, and if both of them are equal, then each part is what? Each part is called a semicircle. Okay, so you have to remember this, children. What do you have to remember? That this smaller part which is there, that is called minor arc, and this bigger part which is there, this is called major arc. Okay, now relating to this, we have other terms as well, children, that are called segment. So what is segment, children? In segment, whenever the part, this particular part of the arc that we have drawn, suppose we are drawing now an actual, so before we had an imaginary line, now suppose now I am drawing, I am joining A and B. So you know already, children, what is AB? AB is actually children, a chord. Okay, so here you can see that AB is a chord and APB is an arc. So what is a segment? A segment is a part of the circle which is bounded by arc and chord. So whatever is the area between this particular arc and this chord, this particular area, if you see the one I am marking with red pen, this is called my segment. Okay, so if they are asking you what is segment, segment is a part of circle that is enclosed between what? It is enclosed between the arc and the chord. Arc and chord. Okay, so this is an important thing, children, that you should need to know, that a segment is a part of the circle that is enclosed between arc and chord. Now there is one more thing, children, that you need to understand. You can ask, ma'am, that even this is a arc that we were talking about. So this particular area which is there, if you see, this is also an area which is enclosed by a chord and a major arc. So why not this is called segment? Of course, children, this is also called segment. And what do we call it? We call it as a major segment. Okay, so the one which is small and one which is bounded by minor arc is called minor segment. Okay, and the one and the part which is bound by a major arc, if you remember this outside one, this is called major arc. Okay, so the inside part which is there, children, this will be called as major segment. Okay, and then you have to remember one more thing, children, that unless and until specified, you will be taking any given segment as minor. Okay, because if they are talking about major, they will be specifying that separately. So unless and until it is specified, you will be taking all arcs as minor arcs and all segments as minor segments. So here if you see, this was minor arc. Okay, so minor arc, major arc, minor segment and major segments all are actually correlated to each other. Okay, so now what we'll be doing, we'll be now moving to the next thing, children, that is called sector. Now what is sector, children? See, I'll be telling you in the same figure. If I want to draw, see, if I just remove this part that has been explained already. Okay, so in this particular circle, children, suppose I am having what? So the basic definition is, it is the region that is bound by an arc and two radii. Suppose AB is my arc. Okay, and then from the center I am drawing OA, I am joining OA and I am joining OB. So in this figure, this particular area which is there, children, this particular area is called what? this particular area is called sector. Okay, so what is the definition of sector? The sector is a region that is bounded by an arc and two radii. Okay, so this is called a sector. So similarly here also I am having a minor sector, because if you see, even this is my arc, this is my arc and this is also bounded by two radii. Then you can ask, ma'am, that even this happens to be an arc. Yes, this is also an arc, but then you know already what will be the name of this arc. This particular, not arc children, this is also a sector. So this is called major sector. Okay. Because what is the definition of sector, children? Sectors is an area which is bound by a arc and two radii. So here you can see this is also an arc and these are also two radii. So this is also a sector. So that is called major sector, and this is called what? This is called minor sector. And again you have to remember this thing, children, that unless and until specified, you will be taking any given sector as minor sector. Okay, so this is the thing. Now what we will be doing, children, we will be moving to the next thing. So what is the next thing which is there in this is the chord properties. So you already know what is chord, children. Now we will be looking into some of the properties. So this comes under theorem 22 of your textbook, children. Okay, of course this is in no continuation with anything, but still since it's given, it says a straight line that is drawn from the center of a circle to bisect the chord which is not a diameter is at right angles to the chord. Okay, so suppose this is a circle that I am talking about. So suppose there is a chord which is there. So AB is my chord. Okay, so suppose from the center, let my center be O. Suppose from here I am dropping a perpendicular. Not perpendicular, sorry children. From here, suppose I am drawing a line, suppose OP, and if this line OP is dividing this arc into two equal halves such that AP is equal to PB, then OP is perpendicular to AB. Okay, so this is what my theorem says. Once again I will be discussing this. It says that suppose there is a circle and I have an arc AB. Okay, now from the circle, if I am dropping a line which is dividing this chord AB into two equal halves such that AP is equal to PB, then this particular line OP will be perpendicular to AB. Okay, so this is called what? This is called, OP will be called perpendicular bisector of chord AB. Okay, of course we have proofs as well, but then I don't think, children, they are going to ask. Even if they are going to ask, this is quite pretty easy one, children. You will be joining these two. Okay, and then what you will be doing, you will be proving that these two triangles are congruent because this is equal to this is equal to this common, and this side is equal to this side because it is given. Now if these two triangles are congruent, then it is understood that this angle will be equal to this angle. So what you will be writing, sum of both of them will be equal to 180 degrees. So ultimately each of them will turn out to be 90 degrees. So in that way you can prove that this particular line is bisecting chord AB. So this is my theorem number 22. Okay, now if I move to the next theorem, that is my theorem number 23, children. Okay, I'll just erase this. So this is theorem number 23. So it says what? A perpendicular to the chord from the center bisects the chord. So this is called what, children? This is actually called converse of theorem 22. What do you mean by converse, children? You will come to know now. In this theorem, according to this theorem, they are saying, suppose in a circle there is a chord and I am dropping a perpendicular from the center, then this particular perpendicular is going to bisect my circle, my chord, into two equal halves such that AP is equal to PB. Now you can see here, children, that the things which are there, both the theorems are very much related to each other, and therefore it can be sounding quite confusing. Okay, but then you need to understand this, children. For this I'll be explaining you once again what are they saying here. They are saying in theorem number 22, what they said that suppose there is a circle. Now from the center of this circle, suppose I am dropping a line which is there, and if it is bisecting the chord into two equal halves, then this particular line is perpendicular to the chord. And if I talk about theorem number 23 that is there, it says that in a chord, suppose I am dropping a perpendicular. So here they are already giving that it is a perpendicular. So if you are dropping a perpendicular, then these two parts AP will be equal to PB. Okay, just the converse. Here I have been given that my parts are equal, and here I have to prove that the parts are equal. Okay, so this is what is called converse. Now similarly, we'll be moving to theorem 24 and 25 simultaneously so that you understand. So this is my theorem 24, and then I'll be discussing theorem 25 here. So according to theorem 24, it says equal chords of a circle are equidistant from the center. Okay, it means what? Suppose this is my circle and I am drawing here two equal chords. What is equal chord, children? Equal chord means suppose I am taking that AB is equal to CD. Okay, this is the assumption that I am doing. Now what can you conclude from this particular observation, children? It can be concluded that suppose this is my center. Okay, then if AB is equal to CD, this will imply that suppose this is O and this is PQ, then this implies that OP will be equal to OQ. Do you understand what this says, children? OQ is equal to OP. This means what? If two chords are equal, then from the center, if you are dropping perpendiculars to both the chords, then the length of both this perpendicular is going to be equal. It means OP is going to be equal to OQ. Okay, so this is our theorem that suppose in a circle you are having two equal chords, then from center, if I am dropping perpendicular to both the chords, then these two perpendiculars are going to be equal to each other. Okay, so this is what this theorem says, and then we'll be moving to the next part, children, that is our theorem number 25, which says what? It says just the converse. So now you could have imagined what is the converse, children. It says that if there are two chords and if the sorry students, if the distance of both the chords from the center are equal, then these two chords are equal to each other. So here what they have given, same figure, children. Okay, suppose this is BA and this is CD. So now what they are saying, that if OP is equal to OQ, then this will imply that AB is equal to CD. So here you can see, children, whatever was given, here you proved that. Here what you had to prove, that is given. So this is what is called converse. Okay, so I just hope you understood this, children. If I just want to explain you again this in short, it says that suppose there is a chord in which I am having two suppose there is a circle in which I am having two equal chords, and from center I am drawing perpendicular, then this perpendicular is, these two perpendiculars are going to be equal, means what? This particular distance is equal to this particular distance. And the converse says what? Suppose in a center there are two chords, and the distance between the center and the two chords, if they are same, then these two chords are equal to each other. Okay, so this is what this theorem says. We'll now move to the next thing, children, that is theorem number 26. Okay, theorem number 26. So theorem number 26 says what? There is one and only one circle which passes through three given points not in a straight line. Okay, so suppose randomly children, there are 3 points that are given. So they are now saying what? Through these points we have only one circle which can actually pass through these points. Okay, so how are you going to form that circle? That is an easy one, children. You have to draw, you have to join these points. Okay, not up to here. See, suppose these are 3 points, you will be joining this, you will be joining this. Suppose this is ABC. Now what you will be drawing? You will be drawing perpendicular bisector of AB. So you know from A you will be drawing 2 arcs, from B you will be drawing 2 arcs. Suppose this is my perpendicular bisector. For BC also you will be forming 2 arcs from here to here and here to here. So for BC, suppose this is my perpendicular bisector. Okay, and now wherever these 2 points are going to meet, that is going to be my center, and taking this as center and this one as radius, you can actually draw a circle like this. Okay children, so this is not relevant first of all that how do you draw a circle. The only thing that is important here is that through 3 given points you can actually draw only one circle, and the condition is that those 3 points cannot be collinear. They should not lie on the same line. And how do you draw? Suppose these are the 3 points. Suppose this is A, B and C. So with AB you will be drawing one perpendicular bisector like this, like this. For AB this is my perpendicular bisector. For BC also I will be drawing a perpendicular bisector like this, like this. And wherever these 2 points are meeting, so this will be my center. And then with this center, with O as center and OA as radius, I can just draw a circle like this. Okay, so this is my theorem number 26, and thus children, I think we are done with the theoretical parts which are there. Now we are good to go for the exercise. So before you just turn into the exercise, I want you all to look into the examples first, so that it will be more easier for you to go through the exercises. Alright, so in the next video we'll be starting with the exercise.